9.4, we're looking at absolute value inequalities. And basically is this. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the less thans and the greater than, the and or statements that we had before, and we're going to turn the absolute value inequalities into either an and statement or we're going to turn it into an or statement. The key thing on that one is that you're going to have to do that based on what your inequality sign is. So if you have absolute value of x less than or equal to, it doesn't matter which one we're looking at there. So if it's less than or equal to, here's where we're going to kind of play off the words on these. Key thing is it's less than. That's the biggest thing you're looking for, that you're still going to get the absolute value of x by itself, just like with the equations. We got the absolute value of x by itself, and then we've split off into two parts. Well, this one's going to be basically the same thing. You're looking for the keywords here. So if it's less than, you really want to think about it being less than, that it's going to be an and statement. And the good thing about the absolute value inequalities is that when you're doing these, there's really not any trick questions when you're coming to this part, that if it's an and statement, it should be sandwiched between two numbers. Okay, so let's give you an example of what this one looks like. So let's say you had just something really simple. We'll just start with a number to start with, and then we'll add it up a little degree of difficulty. Let's say you had absolute value of x was less than 7. So no matter what you do with these, the key thing you're looking for is this, is whatever that symbol is. And same thing with equations. When we've done these in the past, you always want the x on the left-hand side, so you make the graphs work out correct. Same thing for this one. You still want the x on the left-hand side when you're going through this one. So here's what it says. It says as long as that thing is less than whatever the number is, you're just going to sandwich it so that number stays between -7 and +7. And the x is going to stay in the middle. Now, you're still going to make this x less than, and what we're going to do is, so that we sandwich it together and don't have to write it as two separate parts of it, when we write the other one, we're still going to make it a less than. So basically this thing is saying that we're staying less than 7, but if you flip this part around so that the -7 was, so that the x part of it was first, that's x greater than -7. So you're staying greater than -7, but you're staying less than 7. And if they ask you to solve it, well, then that would be it. That's all you'd have to do. If they ask you to graph it, it should be sandwiched between those two numbers. And because it was less than, for that part to be an open circle, and an open circle and everything in the middle. So that's where you're going to tie that part of it in. If it's less than, when you start with it, if it's absolute value of x less than some number, it's going to be a sandwich statement. So you'll sandwich between the positive and negative of that number. It's like your blast zone. If it's your blast zone is going to be less than 7 miles. So everything within a 7-mile range, any direction, is going to be hit by that. Anything beyond that, you're safe. Don't think about it that way. Exactly. X could be anything between -7 and 7. Okay, and on the flip side of it, if you have absolute value of X greater than, or if you have greater than or equal to some number. Key thing is for this one, you're looking at the greater part of it. If it's greater, it's greater. Just putting the or part on the end of it. So for this one, it's an or statement, which means when you graph it, it should look like ors on the board. So if you have to graph this one every single time, if it's absolute value of X greater than some number, it should be, when you finish up with the graph on it, it should like that you've got a gap in the middle, you've got a right side of the graph going to infinity, you've got the left side of the graph going to negative infinity. So again, just starting you off with just the basic simple one here. You've got absolute value of X is greater than or equal to 4. Okay. And same thing with the last one. You're still just looking for the inequality symbol, and that's going to tell you what we're doing. And as long as that's a greater symbol, that one means we're going to be in an or statement. So for this one, we've got the X is greater than or equal to 4. When you make that a -4, since you're basically kind of multiplying through by a -1, that's where you've got to flip that inequality symbol and make it out to be less than. So we're going to have X less than 4, or X is greater than 4. So for that one, go in solid circle and off to the left. Solid circle here, head off to the right. Okay, now that's just the very basics, just problem by itself where you've got the numbers. They're going to, of course, walk you up and make the problems a little bit tougher. Start having you where you got to add some numbers and subtract some numbers. So let's just give you some here where it gets a little bit tougher. Okay, so let's say you got absolute value of v minus 2. And that's less than or equal to 7. Okay, and like we're doing with equations in 9.3, you've got to get the absolute value by itself. In this case, the absolute value is by itself. So for this one, when you split it up into the two parts, oh wait, sorry. Before we do that, got to check our symbol here. Less than. So if it's less than, that means it's going to be an and statement, and with an and statement, you're going to sandwich it between the two numbers. Okay, so the absolute value is all by itself. So that was the first thing we had to have. And once it's by itself, well, then that's where you're just going to take whatever you've got on the inside here, that v minus 2, and you're going to sandwich it between positive 7 and negative 7. And again, the more, after you get past the first couple of problems, they'll start making them a little bit tougher. Same thing with these, we'll start adding a little bit of degree of difficulty to them. So to get the v by itself, now you've got to add 2. We're going to add 2 to all 3 parts. So if you do that, -7 plus 2 is -5. The v's by itself now, and 7 plus 2 would be 9. So anything between -5 and 9, you can take any number between -5 and 9, plug it back into the inequality in the beginning, and that'll make that inequality true. So if they ask you to graph this one, well, we've got 5 at 9, -5 and 9, solid circle at the -5, solid circle at the 9, and then everything in between. But the one key thing you've got to get on the inequalities here at the end of chapter 9, everything that we do depends on that inequality sign, whether it's less than or whether it's greater. That's going to tell you exactly what you have to do with it, whether you sandwich it between the positive and negative, or you turn it into an or statement where you've got the 2 separate parts. Let's go with the absolute value of x plus 3, and that's going to be greater than 5. Okay, so for this one, before we do anything, absolute value's got to be by itself, so the first thing we want to do is get rid of that plus 3. So we'll go -3 on both sides. So we've got absolute value of x is greater than 2. And once you've got the absolute value all by itself, now you're looking for the sign. And in that case, it's greater. When you think about it, it's greater, so it's an or statement. So x for this part has got to be greater than 2. Or, if we keep the negative over here on the left-hand side, this x would have to be less than -2. So if it's an or statement, it should flip out that you've got, and again, to make it flip out, if it's greater, well, you've got to turn around and make it a less than. So that's the 2 things we're looking at. So we're going from -2 to 2. And if it's an or statement, it should look like it's ors on a boat. So we've got an open circle at -2. Head to the left, we've got an open circle at +2. Head off to the right. So everything in 9.4, they're really going back to what we did back in 9.1, bringing back the inequality part of it, but it still just all ties off whether it's the symbol of it, whether it's an and statement or whether it's going to be an or statement.